Welcome back, everyone, to VG Emporium. If you couldn't tell by the name of this episode and the opening track here, we're going to be taking it a little easier this time. You know, give your ears a break, because the last couple episodes were pretty frenetic. You know, and the last episode was called Face Melters, so yeah, this one's going to be the total opposite of that. Though I believe I do have a couple of FM tracks in this one as well. You know, I cannot put FM. I'm a bit of an FM junkie, but they are going to be a little bit more subdued and not as harsh. And I also want to say that this episode is going to be dedicated to my wife, because this is the kind of music that, when I do listen to video game music, is the stuff that she likes to hear, because most of the times when the other stuff I listen to, like that really frenetic, high energy, just always going kind of stuff, she doesn't care much for. So one of the things she likes to say is, you know, soft, gentle, nice. And what is nice is this song. It is Time for a Rest from Final Fantasy XII, composed by Hitoshi Sakimoto. And it is actually one of my favorite pieces, oddly enough, from this entire soundtrack. You know, this plays in a little room called the Skybent Chamber, which is at the very end of this huge area called the Sochin Cave Palace, which, you know, is just this underground maze of it's just a cave with ruins of palaces all over the place. And after you defeat the boss in that place called Ariman, which is a ghost that can copy itself, you know, you ride a lift up to the Skybent Chamber, and the first thing you hear is this music playing, and it's got like one of the orange save crystals in there, which restores all your health and stats, and, you know, of course, save status. And, you know, you can just hang out here for a little bit, enjoy the music, rest, because a time for rest, before you proceed out the door to go to Old Arcades on your way to Arcades, the Imperial City. And I think the reason it stuck with me is because, you know, after that whole scenario, it's just, you know, kind of more like dour, kind of eerie music all the way through, and then that boss battle, and then, you know, this just kind of soaring, uplifting, but very mellow music started playing, and I don't know, I always enjoyed it, and I'd kind of go back, I would warp back to this place just to hear that music every once in a while. And before I go off on more on this game, I want to tell you a bit about Hitoshi Sakimoto, though I feel like I don't really have to, because I'd imagine most everybody who's listening to this podcast knows this man and what he has done, and just how influential and prolific he is. But here we go. This guy, he got started at composing music for the NEC PC 88 for a game called Revolter, and then would go on to do music for, you know, the Game Gear Devilish, and then the Sega Genesis Midnight Resistance, also Devilish, Captain America and the Avengers. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, the big one, Gauntlet 4. That one you gotta go listen to. He also did Shin Megami Tensei for the PC Engine. And then keep going down the list here. He did music for Tactic Ogres on the SNES. I'm gonna be giving you a rough list here because there's just so many, but he got to start doing music for games on the NEC PC 88, such as Revolter, and then would move on to doing things on the Sega Genesis, Devilish, Magical Chase, Two Crude Dudes, Gauntlet 4. He would, of course, do the music for Ogre Battle on the SNES, and that one he would continue to do music for the Ogre Tactics series. He did Shin Megami Tensei on PC Engine, or the TurboGrafx 16. And funnily enough, he also did the Power Rangers movie soundtrack on the Game Boy. And then, of course, the big one, the one that got him, noticed, people would really start paying attention, at least here in the West, is Final Fantasy Tactics. And he would continue to also make music for the future Tactics games that came out. He did Breath of Fire, Dragon Quarter, and then he did the 3 games for Vanillaware, Odin Sphere, Muramasa, and Dragon's Crown. And then let's end this off with Terra Battle, which was on the iOS. But there's a lot more in between all these ones I just mentioned, probably more after Terra Battle. But like I said, it's just so many, I don't want to go through them all. The one last thing I do want to note, I just found this out, was he programmed some of his own sound drivers. So for the Game Gear, some of the music he did on that, he programmed his own sound engine and wrote the music in Z80 assembly. And then for the Sega Genesis, for all those, he created his own, sound driver called the Terpsichorean. So that's like how he got that really big, nice like sounds off the YM2612. And then another little fun fact I did know about was that he would often go by the alias of YMOH.S, which is, of course, the YMO is the Yellow Magic Orchestra, which was a huge influence on this man, and probably many other Japanese composers. They were a Japanese electronic pop band, maybe not even pop, I don't know what to call them, but they got started in 1977, and they kept going strong through the 90s. And I think they still do live tours every once in a while and all. And then, of course, the H.S is his initials, Hitoshi Sakimoto. And now this game. Oh, man, I think out of all the Final Fantasies, I think this is the one I put the most hours into, with Final Fantasy IX just behind that. I, of course, I did know about Final Fantasy back when I was a kid. I remember seeing some friends playing it, trying it out myself. Didn't really ever get to play my own Final Fantasy until, funnily enough, Mystic Quest. And, it was okay. It helped me learn. And then, of course, I got to finally play Final Fantasy IV, or as we know it as 2 here, and then straight onto the PlayStation with 7. Tried 8, got all the way up to the 3rd disc, and it froze on me on the FMV where they're going into space, so I never got to finish that one. Then 9 came along, and that one I played all the way through, and it's a family favorite with me and my sisters. And then, of course, never played 10. 11 went by me because I wasn't into MMOs at all, and then 12 came along, and that one just devoured me. I just played it so much, I beat it, and I just kept trying, went to do all the side missions and everything, all the different hunts, and just all the little secrets that were out there and everything, and it was just an amazing experience, is all I can say. And all the music in that game was, I think Hitoshi was perfect for it. And, it's also because, it's set in the world of Evilus, which he has basically become the main composer for all the games that are set in that world, other than Final Fantasy XIV, I think. I think the reason why it grabbed me so much was because it's, so radically different from all the Final Fantasy games that had come before. It was almost like a open world, still map-based. You would have to go through a corridor, and then it would load, and then get into a different screen, but just the way how the world interconnected and moved around and everything. And then, of course, the battle system was pretty engaging and intricate if you wanted to get really get into it, and the fact that it stayed on the map instead of flashing to just a separate battle area. It's just, you see the enemy, they engage you, and then you're just there just fighting, still moving around the terrain that you were exploring earlier. So that was a pretty big big surprise for me. And I think the other thing I liked about, at least the story, was the fact that it didn't really have a set main character, like most Final Fantasies had before. And, imagine, there were maybe at least 3 that it kind of went back and forth between, but it wasn't, solidly set, because the story, depending on where the story was at, it was more focused on that character. You start off as, Vaughn, and you think, okay, this is going to be our main because he's the plucky, young dude. He's going to go explore the world, become a sky pirate. And then you meet other characters, and it starts shifting towards them and their point of views. And then it's not as focused on, plucky adventure boy, and more about sad princess lady. But yeah, I don't know. But it also helps that this game is just a beautiful game too. I mean, I still think it holds up pretty well. It's some of the renders are kind of jaggy and stuff compared to stuff that's out now. But I don't know, just something about games on the PS2 just still look really good. Flaws aside. Maybe it's just that aesthetic. In all caps and spaces between each letter. And before we move on, I gotta just say my favorite character from this game is Sid, the father of Balthier, who is one of the main characters. Just because he's just so weird and just such a twist on the usual Sid character, where he's like a friendly mechanic, always building airships and stuff. This guy, he's just a mad scientist, just wanting to create manufactured nethicite, and working with like these ancient things. And his character just reminds me so much of this one Desti Nova from Battle Angel Alita manga series, which was one of my first actual mangas that I read and was, still one of my favorites today. And as another side tangent, every time I'd read Desti Nova in that manga, I'd just hear Mark Hamill's Joker every time. It just works out so well in my head. And as a side note, if you've read the book series Mistborn, the main character Vin, I imagine her as actually like Alita, just the way how she's described and how she looks in the book covers and everything. So, this has gone on way too long. It's time for a combo breaker, and for us to move on to our next track. I Got You Town from Dragon Slayer: Legend of Heroes, the MSX2 version, composed by Falcom Sound Team JDK, or more specifically, Mieko Ishikawa. That was Town from Dragon Slayer Legend of Heroes on the MSX2, composed by Mieko Ishikawa. And as I've been learning about Falcom games recently through other podcasts, this particular title is both a sequel and a beginning of a series. It's weird. So apparently it's like the 6th in the Dragon Slayer series, but the 1st in the Legend of Heroes series. Before that, there was, of course, the first Dragon Slayer, then Xanadu, Legacy of the Wizards, Sorcerian, and then, this would go on to become like Legends of Legends of Heroes, and then become like, I don't know, Trails of something rathers and whatnots. And yeah, I don't even want to get in that mess. There's other people that already know way more about this and probably still don't know what's going on. And to be all honest, I don't have much experience with many of the Falcom games. I think I first played, the couple of the Ys games via emulator, and then the first actual Falcom game that I owned was on PSP, which was Legend of Heroes, but I guess which was a re-release of Legend of Heroes 4. But this doesn't stop me from being familiar with the Falcom's music, though. At least for like the older titles, and that is once more thanks to VGM Rips. And though I did originally find the Mega Drive version of these songs from this game on Project 2612, and my favorite one from that is Field, but that's more of an action-packed one, and we're going for some peaceful sound and stuff. And so this version I found, the MSX, was actually fit more into that tone because it wasn't as bombastic as the Mega Drive version. And speaking of music, let's get into the composer here, Mieko Ishikawa. So they did Ys, Ancient Ys Vanished, music for Sorcerian, Potful Mail, Brandish 2 and 3, the various of the Xanadu series, and the last credit I found for her was for Gurimin, A Monstrous Adventure on the PSP. I may have missed a composer on this game. It could be possible. I mean, the sound team JDK is pretty big, but so forgive me if I have. Alright, so let's move on to our next track, which is Floating Point by Laxity, made in Fast Tracker 2 in 1997. And you may want to just sit back for this one and just let it wash over you. Sorry for disturbing you, but I just wanted to let you know again that this was Floating Point by Laxity, made using Fast Tracker 2 in 1997. And what info I have on Laxity is that his real name is Thomas Egeskov Peterson from Denmark, who is most famously known for being part of the demo group Maniacs of Noise. And he was active with them from like about, I want to say, 89 to 94. And if you want to know more about these guys, I would suggest you go check out the VG Embassy's episode on the game Break Quest, which features music made by that whole crew. And he goes in pretty good depth about them. Now a little tale as to how I found this track. Sometime about like at the 2008 or so, I started really getting into I discovered and was getting more into demo scene stuff. So just finding all like the mod files, .it files, .xm files that I could find and listen to. Was started using Milky Tracker to actually watch these modules go, and just like I was fascinated just by watching these things because it's just crazy what some of these guys could do. And in about 2000, in that search I found this guy called Nags. And I really liked his stuff, so I just started kind of following him, just trying to find more of his stuff. And then 2009, I found this site called Chip Till Death, which actually had an article with Nag's name in it, and it was called Nags Presents 100 Best Demo Scene Small Tunes. And what it was just a collection that he had made of just all these different modules from like throughout the years, from like late 80s all the way up until that time 2009. And he just curated all these different modules types, so .it, .mod, .xm, .s3m, and just put them in the zip file and just made it open there for everybody to download. And I downloaded it and ate it all up. And I actually went so far as to take each module and export them to WAV files so that I could then convert them to MP3 files to then put them onto my MP3 player so I could listen to them on the go. Isn't that delightful? So now let's keep these easy tunes going. I got for you Morning from Flower, Sun, and Rain, composed by Masafumi Takada. That was Morning from Flower, Sun, and Rain by Masafumi Takada. And I really do enjoy his music. I could say a lot of it kind of has like this slight undertone of uneasiness to it, kind of like a not quite offsetting. I don't know how to quite explain it, but in this track, like all this is just a piano, but it's heavily like kind of bit crushed. A little grittiness to it. It's like very peaceful, but still something kind of lurking underneath the surface. Speaking of music, let's go down the list of what he's done here. Let's see, he's got Run My Half, Battle Renaissance, Moonlight Syndrome, Airborder 64, The Silver Case, Shining Soul 2, Killer 7, Samurai Champloo Sidetracked, the No More Heroes series, the Danganronpa series, and his upcoming one is Enigma Archive Raincode. This guy can cover, a lot of different genres and bend those genres into very interesting things. And speaking of very interesting things, let's get into this game here. So, this is the second production by Grasshopper Manufacturer, founded by Goichi Suda, or aka Suda51. And it is loosely connected to their previous game, The Silver Case, which is more of a kind of like a weird menu-based graphical adventure game. Well, not quite adventure, I don't know, it's like more like a visual novel. And this one is more of an adventure game with like a lot of puzzle elements, and I actually tried playing the DS port once via emulation, and I think I got stuck on one of the puzzles and never got back to it. But I really want to play this one because it's just so strange in that way that Goichi Suda only can make a game. So how the story is that you play as Sumio Mondo, a man who is called a searcher who makes a living looking for things people have lost. And in the course of some events, he ends up in a endless time loop where he relives the same day over and over and over again, and trying to solve all these things, figuring out like why this is going on. Though I imagine even if you were to play this game multiple times, you probably still wouldn't really know what's going on, which is usually the case with most Suda games. And yeah, another little fun fact is that whereas the Silver Case and this game are loosely connected, Killer 7 is supposed to kind of be also connected to this game, but it's set in an alternate reality or timeline. I don't know, it's kind of, it's all I can say, it's Suda. It's a Grasshopper game. What do you expect? Now let's carry on this slightly lo-fi vibe with our next track here. This one is Database from Rockman and Forte from the Super Famicom, composed by Kirikiri-chan, Naoshi Mizuta, and Akari Kaida. Now, this delightful little tune was Database from Rockman and Forte on the Super Famicom, composed by Kirikiri-chan, Akari Kaida, and Naoshi Mizuta. Now, whereas the rest of the soundtrack is supremely jazzy, this comes in as just kind of a nice, easy, peaceful kind of break from all the craziness that is Mega Man and Rockman and Forte. And this plays in the section of the game where you could see all the CDs you've collected throughout the stages, which actually hold data about all the different robot masters from the 7 previous games as well, and then as well as a few other things, I think, like music tracks, I want to say. I don't know, it's been a while since I played it, but yeah, it's just kind of, you can just kind of chill out, look at these really cool just pixel art renditions of all the robot masters. Probably won't be able to read it unless you have an English patch or you're playing the Game Boy Advance version of this, but you know, it's just kind of just nice to hang out and kind of just look at it. And who are these wonderful folk that helped compose this music? Well, first we got Kirikiri-chan, or real name Toshihiko Horiyama. This boy got to start co-composing in Mega Man X and have his first solo go on Demon's Crest. He worked on a few more Mega Man games, like namely X3, 4, this game, Rockman and Forte, would do Misadventures of Tron, worked on a couple of Onimusha games, on a few of the Mega Man Battle Network games. Let's see, he had a special thanks in Maverick Hunter X, did the sound quality controller for Lost Planet Colonies, worked on a few of the Ace Attorney games, namely Apollo Justice, let's see, Ace Attorney Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice, and would be the production assistant on Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. And now Akari Kaida, she's also a longtime Capcom composer. She would do Night Warriors, Cyberbots, Street Fighter Alpha, Breath of Fire 3, Mega Man Battle Network 1 and 5, and also 4.5 Real Operation. She did the music for Okami, the Mega Man Star Force 3, and Mega Man 10 Blade Man's theme. And she also arranged some music for Super Smash Bros. Wii U. And then finally is Naoshi Mizuta, and they also started in Street Fighter Alpha, and then eventually made a jump over to Squaresoft at the time, where they did the music for Parasite Eve 2. They contributed music for Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 13, Guardian Cross, and then they're also doing the music for Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins. And let me tell you, there's gonna be a lot of chaos in this particular game. Oh, what? You didn't hear that? Okay, let me say it a little louder for you. There's going to be a lot of chaos in that particular game. That may or may not be about the origins of Garland, the very first villain of Final Fantasy. We already had all the Final Fantasy talk at the beginning of the show. We're here to talk about the man that happens to be so mega! Or would it be he who rocks? Well, anyway, if you don't know, this game, Rockman and Forte, or Mega Man and Bass, or Bass, whichever you want to say, is a very beautiful Super Famicom 32-bit, 32 megabit cartridge game. And when I say beautiful, it's like, if you played or seen Mega Man 8, it's those sprites in a Super Nintendo game. And it's very hard. Kind of ridiculously hard, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. And like I said, the music in that game is just sheer jazzy goodness. I mean, the opening stage music alone is just amazing. And if you have played Mega Man 8, oh hey, there's a couple familiar faces. There's Tengu Man and Astro Man. Just waiting to hang out with you again. And how this game works is whereas, most Mega Man games, you have all 8 Robot Masters to choose from. Mega Man 8 started with only 4. This one, you start with 2. And then as you beat those 2, you branch off to other 2. And then once you beat those guys, they branch off to other ones. And then you eventually get to the final destination, which is King's Fortress, who is the quote-unquote big bad of the game. Uh-oh, but guess what? It was Wily once more. What can I say? I just like to create robot masters that pretend to be the big bad. Really gotta work on my Scott McNeil. I could get Wily okay. maybe do Dinobot, but I definitely can't reach, Rat Trap or even Piccolo from the Ocean Dubs, of course. Now, that man has quite the voice on him, I tell you a what. We're starting to get too sidetracked here. Okay, getting on to our last track of this show. Alright, so this next one is called Nama by Dalek, which is an arrangement of a track called Game Set from Namachuke 68 on the Sharp X 68000, originally composed by Kanami Kukeha Club, or more specifically, Yuji Takanouchi. That was Nama, an arrangement by Dalek of Game Set from Namachuke 68, originally composed by Yuji Takenouchi. And to be honest, this is not so much as an arrangement as just like, the same song but with the patches just mellowed back a bit, whereas the original version of this song is like really bombastic. It's like that full-on Konami, just crazy FM leads. The bass is just going crazy. There's percussion. This is just like the patches are just really subdued, rounded out, more of kind of like a loungy sound, and the percussion is totally gone. And as for Dalek, who did this version, this fellow is actually the creator of the multi-chip tracker known as Deflamask. And you may be wondering, Rage Cage, what is Deflamask? Don't know what this is. Well, as I said, it's a multi-chip tracker, so it's basically a tracker program like Fast Tracker, Pro Tracker, so that's all like downward scrolling hexadecimal stuff. It actually emulates sound chips from the Sega Genesis, the NES, Commodore 64, Sega Master System, the Sega Arcade, so the YM2151, along with the Sega PCM, the Neo Geo's sound chip, so basically the YM2608, and then also they just now recently added to the Sega Master System the YM2413 sound chip extension, as well as for the NES the VRC7, which is basically just the modified 2413, though they're still working some bugs out, but they did it. It's madness. Oh, and also the PC Engine is emulated on there as well, and the Game Boy. If you want to know more, just go look up Deflamask, Deflemask. As of right now, the newest versions are you have to pay for them, but there are the legacy versions, which are pre the Neo Geo sound chip in there, but still really fun to play around with if you're interested in it. And it is actually what I mainly use to make my music at nowadays. Like, I started using the mobile version back shortly after all the lockdowns started with the pandemic and everything, and my music production, my music making just like exponentially skyrocketed. For some reason, just having it there right there in my hands on the phone and being able to touch and move it around kind of just unlocked something in my head even more than I had before. So that's a cool thing. I would highly recommend. And as for this track, I could listen to this just kind of, endlessly on a loop. And actually, I kind of do, because I have this set as my morning alarm. So as long as that alarm's going and I don't stop it, this track just keeps going, just on that loop that it's going on right now. And, sometimes I just don't do it because I'm kind of enjoying listening to it in my dream space. That weird waking dream space. And I originally found this on Delec's SoundCloud channel. And it was also my introduction to the Namachuke 68 soundtrack, because at first I thought this was like something he originally made, and then farther down I saw some other people's like doing arrangements of it, and I decided to look into it, and bam, I found out it's a soundtrack for a Sharp X68000 game, and that's a totally another can of worms. But all the music on there is just amazing, it's just so bombastic and big, and just like some of the best FM patches you'll ever hear. And that's all due to this man, Yuji Takanouchi, who was a member of the Konami Kukeha Club, who were basically the Konami sound team behind a lot of their like the best music of Konami's old school games from the 80s all the way up to the 90s, possibly even beyond. I need to do some more research. But let's see, what has this fella done here? He has done Space Manbo, Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake, SD Snatcher, and all three of these are on the MSX, which was, Konami's, beginning playground there. And they also developed a lot of the sound hardware, too, for that system. And then he did X-Men in the arcade, they are X-Men! And jumping ahead here, he would be the lead sound designer for Demon's Souls, and then be a sound designer for Dark Souls 1 and 2, working alongside Hitoshi Sakimoto on that. And then the last credit I could find for him was D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die. But I do know he's still doing music. He has a one he does under the name Missing Soul, which I found on SoundCloud. And he mostly does arrangements of other game music and his old music. And I think some originals on there, and it's some really good stuff too. It's kind of like along the sides of this vibe, less bombastic and more just kind of like that. I want to say that PS1, PS2 kind of era of aesthetic. I don't know, it's hard to explain. You have to just go check it out. And then as far as non-music stuff, you can actually follow him on Twitter and Instagram as Technouchi, TECHNOUCHI, where he'll just kind of post about music stuff, or on Instagram, he was doing this for a while. He was doing action figure dioramas, where he would just set up these really cool, elaborate just scenes with action figures that he had, so with the Xenomorphs, Hellraisers, just action figures, superheroes and stuff. And he has this one particular one that he uses a lot for ridiculous scenes, which is this guy with leather pants, no shirt, and the head is just this balding guy, and his mouth is always just open, in this shocked expression, and he just always has the worst things happening to him, just the most strangest things. And on occasion, he likes to share photos of very nice bottles of cologne and flower arrangements. So a very interesting fellow indeed. And, I hope you enjoyed my selection of very nice, easygoing, relaxing, chilled out tunes to just kind of ease off from the FM madness, though I couldn't help but feature some FM music, because again, I am an FM junkie. And this FM junkie goes by the name of Rage Cage, which you can find on all the social medias under Rage Cage, RAYJ, KAYJ, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm also on SoundCloud for my original musics. And then I'm eventually going to start a YouTube. You just wait. Or actually, I already have a YouTube under Rage Cage, but I'm going to start a VG Emporium YouTube. And you can find VG Emporium on also these other social medias, Instagram, Twitter, under my Rage Cage page on Facebook, as well as all the podcatchers. So, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and, I don't know, maybe some other ones that happen to pull from those same, the Google Gobbles, whatever you want to call it. And as for next week's episode, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I'm still kind of, I've got a couple that I'm kind of going back and forth on, so, it's just going to be a little bit of surprise. We'll see. It's going to be good. It's going to be a good time. So before we part, I'd just like to say, just take some time to, relax and chill out, because, I know life gets pretty chaotic. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. Never seems to stop, but, just always remember to just take some time out for yourself, listen to some, just relaxing music, read a book, sit, just stare off into nature. Even though it is at hard at times, just do it.